Asterisk, I still remember the exact moment my world fell apart. The sound of my own heartbeat pounding in my ears as I stood there, frozen, staring at the person I thought I could never lose. My mouth was dry, my hands were shaking, and all I could think was, did that really just happen? Did she really say that to me? That one sentence she threw at me, casual, emotionless, like it meant nothing, broke something inside me that I didn't even know could break. You're just not enough for me, Ryan. You never were. I swear those words echoed in my head for weeks, like a curse I couldn't shake. I had spent 2 years believing she was the one, building my life around her, making plans, sacrificing everything. And in less than 60 seconds, she threw it all away. Tell me, if you were in my place, would you still believe in love after that? Would you still put your heart out there, knowing it could be shattered again? Asterisk, but let me take you back to where it all started. Maybe then you'll understand why this story changed me forever. And why. After everything, I can say with complete honesty that rejection doesn't scare me anymore. It all began 2 years earlier, in a quiet little coffee shop where I used to go every Saturday morning to read and escape from the noise of my life. I was 27, working as a junior architect, juggling long nights, impossible deadlines, and the constant feeling that I wasn't good enough. My social life was practically non-existent. My confidence was at rock bottom. And the last serious relationship I had ended because, apparently, I was too focused on my career. That morning, I was just sitting by the window with my sketchbook, lost in my thoughts when she walked in. Her name was Clara. Asterisk, I remember noticing her laugh before I even saw her face. It was one of those laughs that made people turn their heads, bright, confident, effortless. She had this energy like she belonged everywhere she went. She ordered a latte, found a seat across the room, and started typing on her laptop. I don't know what got into me that day, but for the first time in years, I felt this strange pull. My heart said, talk to her. My brain screamed, don't you dare embarrass yourself. And of course, I listened to my brain. I sat there for the next 45 minutes, pretending to read while secretly watching her, imagining what I'd say if I had the courage. She left before I could do anything, and I told myself that was it. I'd never see her again. Asterisk, but fate, or maybe life's sense of humor, had other plans. The next Saturday, she was there again. Same spot, same latte, same focused look on her face. My pulse went up the second I saw her. I couldn't let the moment pass again, so I forced myself to stand up, walk over, and say something. Anything. Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you look like you're writing something important. Mind if I ask what it is? It was awkward, I'll admit, but she smiled. Just working on an article, she said. I'm a freelance writer. You. That tiny conversation led to another, and before I knew it, we were sitting together every Saturday. Coffee became lunch. Lunch became dinners. And soon, dinners turned into late-night walks and long talks about dreams, regrets, and fears we never told anyone else. Asterisk, I fell in love with her before I even realized it was happening. The way she made me feel seen, like I mattered. It was something I hadn't felt in years. She had this wild curiosity about everything, and she'd challenge me in ways that made me want to be better. We talked about traveling together, maybe even starting something of our own. She'd write, I'd design. We'd create stories and spaces that meant something. It all sounded so perfect. To perfect. Asterisk, I should have seen the cracks forming, but love makes you blind. About a year in, things started to change. She began pulling away, saying she was busy or tired. The texts got shorter, the calls less frequent. When I asked if something was wrong, she'd smile and say, You're overthinking again, Ryan. And I believed her because I wanted to. I told myself it was just a phase, that she'd come around, that love doesn't just fade. But it does, slowly, quietly, until one day, you wake up and realize you're the only one still trying. Asterisk, the night she ended things. It was raining. Of course it was, because apparently the universe loves cliches. She came over to my apartment, didn't even sit down, just stood by the door and said, Ryan, I can't do this anymore. My stomach dropped. Do what? I asked, already knowing the answer. This, she said, waving her hand like our entire relationship was some small inconvenience. You're great. You really are. But I don't feel it anymore. I wanted to argue, to fight for her. But all I could do was stand there in silence while she packed up her things. The last thing she said before leaving was that line, "You were never enough for me." That broke me. Asterisk for weeks. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't focus at work. I replayed every moment, every conversation, trying to figure out what I did wrong. My friends told me to move on. But how do you move on when every song, every smell, every corner of your apartment reminds you of the person who left? I even tried texting her once. No response. That silence hurt more than her words. Eventually, I stopped trying. I shut down completely. I started avoiding people, making excuses to stay home, drowning myself in work. Asterisk, but here's the thing about pain. It has a way of forcing you to see who you really are. One day, about 3 months after the breakup, I was working late at the office when my manager, Alex, came over. He was one of those people who always seemed too sure of himself. The kind of guy who could walk into a room and instantly own it. He looked at me and said, "Ryan, you've got talent, but you're wasting it. You play too small. You're scared to be seen." I wanted to tell him he was wrong, but deep down, I knew he was right. He invited me to a networking event the following week. Architects, designers, and investors. My first instinct was to say no. I hated crowds, hated the idea of introducing myself, hated the thought of people judging me. But something inside me whispered, what if this is how you start again? Asterisk that night at the event. I stood in the corner for the first 20 minutes, holding a glass of water and pretending to check my phone. Everyone else seemed so confident, laughing, talking, making deals. I felt invisible. Then I saw someone walking straight. Toward me, a woman, tall, confident, with sharp eyes and a warm smile. "You look like you'd rather be anywhere but here," she said. I laughed awkwardly and admitted, "You're not wrong." Her name was Mia. She was an interior designer, and unlike Clara, she wasn't the type who'd charm the room. She was real, direct, grounded. We ended up talking for almost 2 hours. No fake smiles, no pretending to be someone else. Just honesty. Asterisk when I got home that night, something shifted in me. For the first time since Clara left, I felt alive again. Not because I liked Mia, though I did, but because I realized how much of my life I'd been holding back out of fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of not being enough. Fear of failing. I thought about all the times I'd stopped myself from speaking up, from asking for opportunities, from expressing how I really felt. Just because I was scared of hearing no. And it hit me, that word, no, had more control over my life than I did. Asterisk. So, I decided to do something crazy. I made a list of everything I'd ever wanted to do but never had the courage for. Some were small, like taking a dance class or asking my boss for a raise. Others were big, like pitching my own architectural design to a firm or reaching out to people I admired. My rule was simple. If something scared me, I had to do it. The first time I tried it, I nearly backed out. I went up to a stranger at a bookstore just to say hello. My hands were sweating, my voice cracked, and I sounded ridiculous. But guess what? The world didn't end. He smiled and we talked about books for 5 minutes. That was it. And for some reason, it felt like a victory. Asterisk, day by day, I kept pushing my limits. I started volunteering to present in meetings, even though public speaking terrified me. I joined a local running club, even though I wasn't athletic at all. I even called an old college friend I hadn't spoken to in years and apologized for how our friendship ended. Some people ignored me, some turned me down, but every time they did, I realized it didn't actually hurt as much as I thought it would. The fear of rejection was worse than rejection itself. Asterisk, and then came the real test. A few months later, I found out Clara was back in town. A mutual friend mentioned she was hosting an art exhibition for her new magazine project. The old me would have avoided it like the plague, but something inside me said, go. Not to win her back, but to prove to myself that she no longer had power over me. So I went, I walked into that gallery with my head high, heart pounding, and there she was, laughing, glowing, surrounded by people. When she saw me, her smile faltered for just a second. "Ryan," she said, surprised. I smiled and nodded. "Hey, Clara, congrats on the exhibition. It's beautiful." She thanked me awkwardly, and we made small talk. I could tell she didn't know how to act, maybe because she expected me to still be the broken version of myself she left behind. But I wasn't that guy anymore. I'd learned to build myself back piece by piece. Asterisk that night. When I got home, I realized something huge. I didn't need her approval anymore. I didn't need anyone's approval. That weight, that fear, that constant need to be enough, it was gone. For the first time in years, I felt free. Asterisk, but that's not where the story ends, not even close. Because what happened next pushed me further than I ever imagined. After that night, I thought I had everything figured out. I felt strong, confident, finally at peace with myself. But life has a way of testing you the moment you think you've passed the exam. A few weeks after seeing Clara again, something unexpected happened at work. Something that would force me to face rejection on a level I wasn't ready for. My company was taking on a massive urban redevelopment project, a once-in-a-decade opportunity that could make or break careers. Our team was supposed to present design proposals to the board. And whoever's design got picked would lead the entire project. It was the kind of opportunity people dream about. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like shrinking back. I wanted to try. I wanted to prove to myself that I could do something extraordinary. I spent nights and weekends working on my proposal, a concept that focused on open spaces, natural light, and community integration. It wasn't just a design. It was a statement about connection, about rebuilding yourself after being broken. Exactly what I had gone through. It felt personal. Every line, every detail carried a piece of me in it. When the day of the presentation came, I was nervous but excited. I stood in front of that long boardroom table. The suits, the investors, my boss, everyone staring at me. My hands trembled at first, but then I remembered how far I'd come. I took a deep breath and started speaking from my heart. For 20 minutes, I poured everything I had into that presentation. When it ended, there was a moment of silence, the kind that feels like a lifetime. Then the head of the board, Mr. Lane, said, "Interesting approach, Ryan. We'll let you know." I walked out of that room with my heart pounding, half terrified, half proud. 2 days later, the results came in. I didn't get it. The project went to someone else. Someone with more experience, more connections, someone who played it safe. And I'd be lying if I said it didn't hurt. I had worked so hard given everything I had and still got rejected. For a moment, the old voice crept back in, "You're not enough." But then something strange happened. I didn't break down. I didn't spiral. I didn't question my worth. I just sat there quietly and thought, okay, what's next? That's when I realized something fundamental had changed. The fear was gone. The rejection didn't crush me, it fueled me. I started to understand that rejection wasn't the opposite of success. It was part of it. Every no I had ever heard was pushing me closer to the right yes. I could either let it define me or let it refine me, and I chose the latter. But life wasn't done testing that choice. A few months later, Mia, the designer I'd met at that networking event, reached out to collaborate on a small project. We'd kept in touch occasionally, but this was the first time she'd offered to work together. We spent weeks brainstorming, designing, and planning. She was creative, sharp, and had a way of challenging my ideas that reminded me of Clara, but without the emotional games. I liked her. More than I expected. And that scared me one evening. After we finished a long day of work, we were sitting at her studio, surrounded by sketches and empty coffee cups. The conversation drifted from work, to life, to love, to everything in between. She looked at me for a long moment and said, "You've been through something heavy, haven't you?" I hesitated but nodded. "Yeah," I said softly, "I've had my fair share of heartbreak." She smiled gently. "Haven't we all?" There was a pause, one of those quiet electric moments where you can feel something shifting in the air. I wanted to tell her how I felt, that I liked her, that she made me feel alive again. But then that old fear whispered in my mind, what if she doesn't feel the same? What if she rejects you? I could almost hear Clara's voice in my head, cold and cutting. You're not enough. For a second, I almost let that fear win. Almost. But then I remembered everything I'd been through the sleepless nights. The rebuilding, the realization that rejection can't destroy you unless you let it. So I took a breath, looked her in the eye, and said, Mia, I like you. More than I expected to. And I don't know where this goes, but I just needed to say it. She was silent for a moment, and I felt my heart beating so loud I was sure she could hear it. Then she said, Ryan, you're amazing, and I care about you too. But I'm not ready for anything right now. Stung. Of course it did. But to my surprise, I smiled. That's okay, I said. I just didn't want to keep it to myself. And I meant it. For the first time in my life, I was proud of myself for trying. Proud for saying what I felt without hiding behind fear. We kept working together after that, and things were fine. No awkwardness, no regret. Just mutual respect. And one day she told me something that stuck with me. You know, most people are terrified of rejection because they think it defines their worth. But it doesn't. It just redirects it. That sentence changed everything for me. Because she was right. Every rejection I'd faced had redirected me towards something better. Clara's rejection pushed me to grow. The board's rejection pushed me to improve. Even Mia's gentle "not now" taught me that vulnerability wasn't weakness. It was strength. A few months later, I got a call from Alex, my old manager. He'd moved to another firm and wanted me to join him, not as an assistant, but as a lead designer. You've got something special, Ryan, he said. I've seen how you've grown. You ready? It was the kind of offer I had dreamed of years ago, and I said yes immediately. The first project I led there ended up winning an industry award for innovative design. I remember standing on that stage, accepting the award. Thinking back to the guy who couldn't even make eye contact with strangers at a networking event. After the ceremony, I got a message on my phone. It was from Clara. I stared at it for a while before opening it. She wrote, Hey, saw your award online? You always were talented. Congratulations. For a second, I thought about how to reply. The old me would have overanalyzed every word. But now, I just smiled and typed, Thanks, Clara. I hope you're doing well. And that was it. No bitterness, no longing, no pain. Just closure. It's funny, the more I grew comfortable with rejection, the less power it had over me. I started to see it everywhere, not as a wall, but as a doorway. When I pitched a new project and it got turned down, I didn't take it personally. I learned from it and came back stronger. When someone didn't return my interest, I didn't question my worth. I accepted that not everyone's meant to fit into your story. That shift changed everything. My work, my relationships, even the way I looked at myself. A year later, something incredible happened. Mia called me one evening. We hadn't worked together in a while, but we'd stayed friends. She said, Hey, I'm opening a new design studio and I need a partner. Are you in? I laughed, a little stunned. You sure about that? She said, I've never been more sure of anything. That's how we started our own company together. Small at first, but it grew fast. And somewhere along the way, we grew closer too. There was no grand confession, no dramatic moment. It just happened naturally to people who respected each other, trusted each other, and built something real. One evening, as we were leaving the office, she turned to me and said, You know, I think I was scared before, but seeing how fearless you've become, it's kind of contagious. I smiled and said, Fearless. I don't know about that. I still get scared. I just don't let it stop me anymore. She laughed, shook her head, and said, That's exactly what I mean. That night, for the first time, I realized I had come full circle. The person who once couldn't handle being told no was now someone who understood that every rejection was just redirection. Every failure was feedback. Every heartbreak was a lesson. I wasn't afraid anymore. Not of love, not of failure, not of life. Because the truth is, rejection isn't something you overcome once. It's something you learn to dance with, to let it push you, not paralyze you. And maybe that's the biggest secret of all. The reason why, after everything, I can say you will never fear rejection again if you truly understand this. Rejection doesn't define your value. It defines your direction. Every no brings you closer to the yes that's meant for you. Every door that closes teaches you which ones are worth knocking on again. And every heartbreak, no matter how painful, clears space for something stronger, something real. So when people ask me now, how did you get over the fear of rejection? I tell them the truth. I didn't get over it. I walked through it. I stopped trying to avoid pain and started seeing it as proof that I was living, really living. I stopped asking, what if I fail? And started asking, what if I don't even try? If you're listening to this right now and you've been rejected by someone you love, by a job you wanted, by a dream that didn't happen, I want you to remember this. It's not the end of your story. It's the middle. The part where the main character learns what they're truly made of. Don't let one no make you forget how many yeses the world still has for you. You're not defined by who walked away, by who didn't believe in you, or by what didn't work out. You're defined by how you rise after the fall. So that's my story. The guy who once couldn't talk to a stranger without trembling now runs his own design firm, speaks at conferences, and yes, even fell in love again. Not because I stopped being afraid, but because I stopped letting fear make my decisions. I learned that rejection is not the enemy. The real enemy is silence, the choice to never try at all. And now I want to hear from you. Have you